Searching for Evil. Written and narrated by Carol Bissett. Produced and edited by John Bissett. Be very careful, then, how you live, not as unwise, but wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Ephesians 5:15-16. Prologue. He stood back to admire his work. It was good. Not perfect, but good. He smiled and gently touched her hand. Would the investigating officer suspect this was his first time that he was a murder virgin? What did it matter? He was proving a point, and all he had to do now was get away with it. That would show those idiots who had scoffed at his brilliant ideas. The hands and feet had been tougher to remove than he thought. The face, though, had been easy. Now he just needed a place for the body to be found, and then he could sit back and watch the circus from a distance. This was going to be fun. Chapter 1. Detective Inspector Wen Price ducked under the police tape at the small shopping precinct in Penketh and looked at the hive of activity before her. Men and women scurried about in white suits, with blue gloves and overshoes, just to make the whole ensemble more on trend. "What have we got, Cassie?" she asked as she approached the young detective sergeant. Cassie Roden turned to her boss. "Mail, found about an hour ago in one of these big bins by a shop owner. No ID, no clothes, no hands and feet. Not much face left, come to that." "What?" "It's messy, this one, Ma'am." "When is murder not messy, Cassie?" 8 o'clock in the morning, and what should have been a beautiful spring day in this area of Cheshire had now turned into a bleak murder scene. Wen pulled on overshoes and grabbed a mask from a plastic box at the side of the white tent, which shielded the general public from the grisly scene and the soccer team from the bloodthirsty public. She popped her head inside the tent to see what was going on, and even she felt nausea rising at the sight of the corpse. At the head, suited and booted, knelt pathologist John Barron. "Hi, John. First thoughts?" "Morning, Wen, and how are we today?" "Trying to keep my piece of toast down at the moment. That's a bloody mess." "And how? The face has been smashed to a pulp. Somebody has anger issues, if you ask me." "I didn't." John looked at her over his protective goggles, and she could see from the way his eyes crinkled that he was smiling at her. "What can you tell me?" "Male, between 25-35. He's been dead about 12 hours. Wasn't killed here, and he's had his hands and feet removed." "Strangely enough, I noticed that little detail," said Wen. "He was murdered on Wednesday, then?" "Yep, and it wasn't a clean job. A bit of hacking's been done. Probably didn't have the right equipment, is my guess." "OK. When are you doing the PM?" Wen looked at her watch. "Later today. You be there?" "No, it'll be Cassie. I've got to be in court." "I look forward to your Padua accompanying me in your absence." Wen wondered if John, a massive sci-fi fan, would be happier doing this PM with a lightsaber. "Yeah, right," she turned to go. "Oh, and Wen?" "Yep." "May the Force be with you." Geek. She went to find her sergeant, who was deep in conversation with a uniformed officer. "Cassie?" "Yes, boss." "PM later." "Great." Cassie looked at the floor and kicked a stone. "I'm in court," she clarified, not wanting her DS to think she was pulling rank to duck out of the dicing and slicing. Since their DCI had gone off sick, Wen's workload had doubled. The gap would soon be filled, she'd been told, but she'd heard that before. For starters, I want all these bins emptied and the contents bagging. All of them? Yes, and a door-to-door done. Any CCTV round here? At the front of the shops, but none round the back here. The area was a square with shops on 3 sides and a car park on the 4th. What about that light? Wen pointed to a security light sensor on the corner of the building. Not working, hasn't worked for months apparently. And the guy that found him? In his shop, he's feeling slightly lightheaded as his breakfast ended up all over the tarmac. Right, I'll go and have a word. And with that, Wen strode off in search of her body finder. Mr. Garnett, Peter Garnett. The man stood at his shop door looking distracted. Wen looked at the man and wondered if he was always this pale, or whether it was just shock. The witness looked about mid-40s and probably smoked as many cigarettes as he sold, if his quiet wheeze was anything to go by. Mr. Garnett, I'm Detective Inspector Price. Can you tell me what happened, please? Do I have to? I've already told at least 3 people. He pulled hard on his cigarette. Please, I'd like to hear it for myself. He smiled, but it was strained. It's true, you know. What is? That you're getting old when the police start looking young. And you're a detective inspector? You look more like a model. Wen blushed. Being tall, blonde and slim actually had its drawbacks at times. Times like these, when you needed to be taken seriously about something so heinous. Right, she said, trying to ignore what was probably meant as a compliment. Shall we sit down? They went into the back room of the newsagents. It was a small area with tea-making paraphernalia, 2 easy chairs and a sink. In one corner was a small toilet cubicle. They both took a chair. So from the beginning, please. He sighed. All right. I came in early to do some stocking up, some accounts. Then I unpacked the cigarettes and today's papers. I put the kettle on and I took my rubbish to the bin. Through the back door? Yeah, I threw the cardboard into the blue bin and it just slid out again. I thought that was strange because there was plenty of room yesterday, so I stood on an old beer crate to push the rubbish down and that's when I saw him. He swallowed hard at the memory of his macabre find. Wen suspected Peter Garnett would need a whole heap of therapy before he could sleep well again at night. Am I right in thinking that those bins are shared by all the shops? Yes, each row has the same setup for recycling and that. Not sure what colour it should be for recycling bodies, though. He rubbed the back of his neck and took a deep breath. Wen smiled. No, I wouldn't know that either. What time do you open for business? About 7. People come in for cigs and newspapers on their way to work. My takings are good between 7 and 9. Have you seen anybody about recently who made you feel nervous or apprehensive? No one hanging around looking shifty when you locked up last night? Mr. Garnett shook his head. All right, said Wen, if you think of anything, or a customer says anything to you once the news gets out, can you let us know, please? Yes, of course. Can I open today? He asked hopefully. No, sorry, it's a crime scene. Well, the back is. We'll be as quick as possible, but it's a no-go area for the rest of today. Wen looked at the shopkeeper. To be honest, I think you should go home anyway. You've had a hell of a shock. I'd rather work, actually. Take my mind off it. He put his hand to his brow and rubbed the area over his nose. Then he turned to Wen. Who would do that? Why would somebody do that? It was barbaric. The face, it had gone. This is Warrington, not downtown New York. Wen left Mr. Garnett smoking another cigarette, ignoring the spasm of coughing it had stimulated. She never told people smoking was bad for their health, not when she worked with death and murder on a regular basis. Most of her team smoked, either that or they drank too much, or both. And who could blame them? Not her. Back at base, Wen was putting finishing touches to the murder board ready for the team briefing the next morning. Hopefully by then they would have slightly more information than they had now. Just then her IT guru came into the room on crutches. "Jake, whatever you are going to do, forget it. Missing persons for the last 4 weeks. Male between 20 and 40. Start at a 10-mile radius from here and then expand to 15. "Yes, ma'am." "And Jake, email the team. Briefing here at 8 tomorrow morning." "Yes, ma'am." "And Jake," this time the young officer just looked at Wen as if to say, "What else?" "How's the leg?" "Oh, getting there, thank you, ma'am." He sank down gratefully into his chair, propping his crutches to one side. "I hope you're getting rid of that bike." "That's what my mum tells me." "Good, listen to her. Mums know best." As she left the building, Wen smiled at the absurdity of her advice, as if she would ever have any idea what Mum might know. She had 2 hours before she needed to be at Manchester Crown Court. Just enough time to grab some lunch, shower and change, and get the 1 o'clock train from Central Station. As Wen drove up to the Grade 2 listed detached house on the outskirts of town, she knew that her lunch would probably be on the table by the time she made it to the kitchen. There was no way a car could come up their gravel drive quietly. One of the main reasons they had never got rid of it was that it acted as an early warning system. Not just for herself, but more importantly for the other member of the household, her twin brother Aaron. Brother and sister, both tall and slim with blonde hair, there was no escaping the fact that they shared the same genes. As Wen entered the hall, she noticed that her scarf, which she had left there yesterday, had not been moved. She crossed into the kitchen where Aaron was placing a plate on a mat ready for her to sit down and eat. "No, Mrs. G?" Wen asked. "She's ill. Been sick. So I've told her not to come back until she's completely well again." "And how long will that be?" "At least 24 hours after she vomits for the last time." Aaron hadn't looked at his sister during this conversation, too busy loading the dishwasher to be distracted by the presence of his twin. Their kitchen was large enough to take a comfortable settee, large farmhouse table and 6 chairs, though Wen couldn't remember the last time more than 2 chairs were used at the same time. But it was homely, and it was the room where they spent most of their time. "This looks nice." Wen picked up her knife and fork and made a start on her mixed bean and feta cheese salad, wishing it was a cheese and pickle sandwich. "Aren't you eating?" "Not yet. You know you'll have to do some housework, don't you?" "Yes, but..." "No buts, Arwen. Those are the rules. If Mrs. Guest can't come in, you must do the housework. I do my rooms and the kitchen." Wen knew she couldn't argue. "I will, Aaron, but we've just had a murder inquiry land on us this morning. I might be busy for a bit." Aaron tutted. "Well, I'm not doing it." "I don't expect you to. I'll do it, but you'll just have to give me a little leeway." "That's convenient, isn't it?" Aaron gave Wen a quick glance of disapproval. "Mrs. Guest goes off sick and suddenly you have a murder." "I'm sorry, Aaron, but I don't think this chap decided to get killed so that I'd have an excuse not to tidy the house." Wen got a nod from her brother, but she wasn't sure he believed her. 30 minutes later, Wen was heading out again, with a clean suit on and indigestion. As she got into her car, she thought, not for the first time, that this place was far too big for just the 2 of them. It had 4 bedrooms, 2 of which Aaron had made his. A large bedroom with an ensuite, and he made the other one into a sitting room cum study, which he seldom left. Wen had the master suite plus the rest of the house to rattle round in. But it had been their parents' house, and their grandparents before them, and according to Aaron, they had to stay. So stay they did.